sure.
I didn't get my coffee.
I have mine.
All right. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Hello, NextOppSocial family. Welcome to another live chat discussion here on the NextOppSocial channel. As always, I'm Rachelle Wright Wilson. I'm joined by Juwan Buford, and today we're excited to introduce Candice Williams. Candice is a world-renowned and award-winning reading specialist and founder of Urby Education, which is an online education consulting business that supports parents and teachers in increasing children's reading abilities. She's been named the Reading Revolutionary by Detroit Entrepreneur magazine as coach teachers and reader interventionists by helping their striving readers meet and exceed their reading goals extremely fast by leveraging these research-based strategies. So before we jump into it, just real quick, before we learn more about Candice and about her background, as always, if you're watching with us here, either live or on the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an interview, a live, or any of the incredible discussions we have here on NextOppSocial. So let's get into it now. Welcome, Candice. Thank you again for joining us here today. We're very excited to have you and talk about your journey. So let's jump into it. Tell us more about yourself, your background, and because we are about entrepreneurship here, what caused you to fall in love with being an entrepreneur?
Yes, so thank you, Rachel and Juwan, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and the platform that you guys created for entrepreneurs. So, Will, the dream started way back when I was 5 years old. And I just had this passion for communicating and teaching. Like in the summer, when summer was, when school was out, all of my cousins would come over and they're like, let's go outside and play jump rope. Let's go outside, play hide and seek. I'm like, no, let's come inside in the living room and play school. Like, I'll be your teacher. And they're like, oh my gosh, Candice, you always want to play school. So the passion for teaching started when I was a child. And, I went to Wayne State University. I earned my bachelor's and my master's in education. And then I decided to focus in on literacy because even for myself, I struggled with literacy too. As a young adult going into Wayne State University, I couldn't pass the basic skills test. And I had to take these courses, remedial courses, to prepare me for the undergrad coursework. And I just remember feeling like feelings of low self-esteem and low self-worth and am I good enough? And I remember just thinking to myself that this is what I want my students, my future students, not to feel. And if they have the proper support in place before they reach my point, then they will have a better opportunity to be able to achieve their dreams. And as I taught in the schools for about 6 years, and I became a reading specialist. And then I was like, you know what, something still isn't right. Something still doesn't feel right. It's the politics in education, the lack of funding, the lack of resources, especially when we're talking about the urban community. And then that's when the read by grade 3 law hit. And it could potentially retain third graders who didn't score a certain score on the state exam, which was the, what do they call it now? The M-STEP. So I said, I need to do something. I need to build a resource that will bridge home and school. And this is where Urby Education came into play. And I fell in love with entrepreneurship because it was just a thought of me being able to have no glass ceilings on my income, no glass ceilings on the impact that I can make. And I just ran with it. And that started in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about one of my children's favorite cartoons that they sit and watch all day long, where they have the teacher and then the doctor and all these different things that go on. And as I was listening to you talk, I was like, that was you. In your youth, in front of the community, teaching and educating, man. So apropos. I love it. I love it. I know your passion obviously is what's driven you to this place of entrepreneurship and all the success that you had. But I got to imagine, working in the education field can be kind of orthodox in a way. It can be people kind of get focused in and doing things a certain way or one particular way to have one particular mindset. And to me, I think it's kind of oxymoronic, but I don't see a lot of educators ever really consider entrepreneurship. What separated you from your peers? What inspired you, motivated, or pushed you to the point where you said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to take the regular beaten path and be frustrated and upset with bureaucracy and politics and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, what spurred you to make this decision?
It was just simply just having a dream of having more influence, being more liberated, earning more income. And I remember my first year in teaching, I was in Highland Park, and I'll never forget, I was like maybe 25. And so I was sitting around during our lunchtime in one of my coworkers' classroom. And they were like in their 40s, late 40s, I want to say. So I'm like the rookie, and I'm all excited and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And they were just complaining about everything, from how much money they were making, how they're complaining about their personal life, the schools, like all of this. And I remember I just said, you know what, I won't be here for long. I won't be in a classroom for long. I'm going to start my own business. And they just stopped, and they all looked at me like, okay, like maybe she's a little too arrogant, or who does she think she is? But I just was just thinking to myself, I refuse to be someone who becomes bitter, where I'm coming in with all this bright light. And I just refuse to be someone who just becomes so disgruntled with the whole system that I give up on who I am. And then that will, eventually affect my impact that I'm having on my students. And I didn't want to become that bitter educator, but I just said, like, something, have to be done. And, if no one else is looking at this as an issue, then it might as well be me.
I love it. I love it. So what did that process look like? Right? You selected a date, you begin Liberation Day, as I call it.
Yes, I love that, Juwan. When I saw that, I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to call it, my Liberation Day, right? My final Liberation Day, right? But the whole entire process, it was like standing back and looking at a mountain and looking at the top of it, all the way at the bottom. And I was like, man, if I get to the top of that mountain, how good would that feel? If I get to the top of that mountain and I look down on all that I've been through, and I'm able to be here and say, look at the wonderful work that I've built, to me, that was worth all of the adversity and obstacles that I knew I would face to climb up that mountain. But it was just the satisfaction of, once again, having a goal and conquering that dream. And it was a lot of learning curves. I'm like, okay, all I got to do is create this online course. I'm going to post it. Everybody's going to love it. I'm going to make $10,000 a month, and then I'll be done in a year, And, it was the social media, the digital marketing, knowing how to brand, the messaging, the funding, the money. And so it was a difficult space, because I had envisioned that it would be like 1, 2, 3, done. But it was more like 100, 101, 102. So yeah, but it's been weird at times, because I would knock on many doors and they were locked, not even closed, but the doors were locked. The opportunities were just completely shut down. So it just took a lot of perseverance and grit.
I love it. So I have to ask this question, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs right now are struggling with this, right? And it used to be that axiom that people would say all the time, you build it, they will come. No. If you build it, they will not come. That's not the way business works. All right.
Exactly.
And I'm listening to you, and I can tell it wasn't easy. You had to learn social media. You had to learn how to utilize online marketing to build your brand and grow.
Yes.
What did that process look like for individuals right now who, quite frankly, just haven't gotten there yet? We have a lot of entrepreneurs that went out of business in 2020 simply because they were either fearful or didn't have the expertise or the patience to understand the role that social media plays in helping you build your business. If you could talk about that process or any hurdles you had to come over there, that would be invaluable.
Certainly. So the thing about my journey was, when I started Urby Education in 2018, my whole entire vision was to be an online business. So I already knew the importance of social media. I could not exist as an online business without the social proof on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever platform I decided to use. I think that one of the biggest things that I had to learn was, okay, well, what do you want your messaging to look like? Your copies under your pictures or under your videos is so important, because this is how you captivate the audience. What kind of apps should I use to create the right kind of photos or the right kind of videos? So I had to learn what was it, Canva. I also looked into thinking about what kind of like sales funnel I wanted to use. So once someone see my social media, they click on my link, where do they go from there? Don't go directly to the website. Make sure that you have some kind of sales funneling system. So then I had to learn MailChimp and how to create, emails that people would want to click on. Then it went from that to, all right, well, if you're going to do this online business, now you got to get comfortable with videos, because this is when social media was kind of taking a turn from just pictures on Instagram to now people are doing Vines, they have Snapchat. So it's this whole video thing. So then I had to get comfortable with shooting videos. And it's like, well, if you're going to shoot these videos, you got to make sure your lighting is right. You got to make sure that you have a script and you say this, you say that. Then it went on into the messaging and the branding. Okay, well, how do you want your logo to look? What logos or colors people really relate with education? So like all of those, and in fact, thinking too about what kind of hashtags to use. How can you reach your audience? Should I hire someone to be my social media manager? Then there were all of these social media apps like Pop Social or STEM Social, where you can sign up and pay this nominal fee, $30 a month. And if you're really a big dog, you'll pay about $200 a month, and they'll send you all of this traffic and all these followers. But Juwan, honestly, one thing that I noticed was that it's the difference between having followers and an audience. And for any entrepreneur out there, you have to really be cognizant of that, because you can build a following of 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 followers. But if they're not really your audience, the people who you're trying to sell to, your prospects, potential clients, then all you're doing is creating a fake fame, and you're not selling anything. And you're not a business, like you say, unless you're what? Making money.
Okay.
I think this, I love that you bring that up too. And you've made that connection with marketing and social, because it also ties into why you're doing what you're doing anyway, right? You're helping people, and you need to have this personal connection with people, even if it on the marketing side as well. If people don't feel that they can relate or connect to you in most businesses, but especially your business, because it's a big trust factor too, right? So I want to ask you about, because this is like an education supplement, but extremely necessary, because so many students are not getting these resources in their day-to-day education, right? How have you worked through with that, of educating your audiences and building those relationships to show them that this is still an investment that's worth it?
Yes. I think that what I was able to do is that luckily I have my son, right? So throughout this process, I know I've been in the classrooms, I'm an educator, and I just so happened started to build Urby Education when Justin was about 2.5 going on 3. And so I said, you know what, if I want to build trust within my audience, with my parents, they need to see that I'm not just an educator, but I'm also a parent too. I know what it's like to be at home with your child, wondering, am I doing the best to support them and to ensure that they are where they need to be successful in school. So I said, I'm just going to start filming this. I'm going to start sitting down, doing read alouds with Justin, showing parents what kind of questions that they could ask, showing parents how they can practice letter and sound recognition. And so I just wanted to kind of put myself in a mindset of a parent. If I was a parent and I was an educator, what would I like to see? Well, I want to see some proof. I want to see you interact with a child and, showing me the strategies. And yes, I also want to see that sometimes it just don't go so perfect. And I had made a post where Justin was like 3 years old and it was hot. It was like 90 something degrees outside. And we were in the house doing all of this filming for Urby Education. And I was doing some kind of shaving cream where we were writing letters and doing sounds in shaving cream. And Justin was not for it. Okay. It was about 40 minutes into film. And I had my oldest son, holding my phone. He's sitting next to me. And so I'm like getting ready, like, okay, guys, we're going to start with the letter and sound using shaving cream. And Justin like done a loud, long yawn, like, oh, like I'm over this. I'm bored. I'm tired. And I just stopped and looked at him. I was so mad. But I said, you know what? This may be something that parents need to see. That, of course, is not always perfect. They're not going to sit down and just focus and pay attention, but I got to show them how I draw him back in. And when I made that post, I didn't even edit it. I just posted it, and like, it got thousands of views. People loved it. And they were like, this is what I need to see. I need to see the real. So just making that connection with my audience that I'm a parent too. And I'm also in the classrooms, I'm in the school. So I see it from all different perspectives.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I still want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on something you said earlier, right? When we talk about, you said something that really caught my attention. You said social media is social proof. I love it. So once again, we get these phrases from time to time from our guests. I'm gonna let you have that for 2 weeks and then I'm borrowing permanently, right? Social media is social proof. But you also said something embedded in there about
Oh, hopefully this didn't freeze. Okay, so let's see.
the individuals.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Sorry, you cut out. Go ahead, Jawan. You might have to repeat
Okay.
what
So
came after social media, social
So
proof.
yeah, so people get caught up oftentimes in taking aim at the wrong audience, right? You mentioned that you were talking to the wrong people. Number one, how did you identify that you were talking to the wrong people? And then the most important question is, how did you make the transition? How did you make the switch? What did you change about your business model to make sure you were targeting people and not just getting likes and shares and all that fun, wonderful stuff, but no revenue?
Yes, and that's a great question. So I knew I was talking to the wrong audience, right? When I said, man, this is some good content, but I'm not getting the response that I should. I may get a like, but I'm not getting a comment. I'm not getting a bookmark, a reshare, people sharing it in their stories, and I would check my insights. So I would click on my insights and I'm just like, man, yeah, like people are liking this, but they're not engaging. There's low engagement. And then they're not clicking my links that are in my bio. And then I began to kind of start looking at their pages and who they were following. And it just all tied into the same thing, is that, okay, these are ghost followers, especially when I was using certain social media apps, that they're sending traffic, but they're not my potential clients. Then I realized too that I started building an audience of experts too, where most of my followers were educators and not enough parents. And so I realized that when I'm on here and I'm doing these videos and these tutorials, I'm using the wrong verbiage, I'm using the wrong language, because I'm speaking to my followers, which are educators. So I'm using all of this phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and all of this, and they know what I'm talking about, but I'm losing my parents because they're like, I don't even know what that means. So I said, okay, let me just not even dumb it down, but let me speak to the parent. All right. So you know about spelling, you know about reading and writing, all that, all those other terms you don't need to know about. I just need to get straight to it. And now, instead of me talking about it, let me show you what I do, my hands-on strategies. And that's when I started making that shift, where I would change my language. I would look at the insights, and then I would also notice some of the parents, what kind of hashtags they were following as well. So I had to dive deep into the whole entire science of social media, because it can get real funky. So that's how I was able to shift. I would also use certain apps, like one app is called Hashtags, where you can actually search different types of hashtags. You can use different words that you're going to put into your copy to see, are there hashtags for reading? Are there hashtags for parents? And if so, let me get all those and put them here. And then the last thing too is that I started looking at what people were responding to. And I noticed that they really love the videos more than my photos, which is weird because Instagram originally started as a photo, social media. So just trying to keep up with the times, Juwan. Yes.
I love it. I love it. So you've kind of indirectly talked about some of the challenges that you encountered, right, along the way in terms of building your business, building your brand. But what are some of the challenges that you've encountered that, had to deal with not just social media, or not necessarily just with branding, but in terms of going about and finding the right pieces, finding the right people, finding the right tools. Because you have a lot of moving parts to your business. You have vendors that you employ. I know you have your nonprofit, and so you got to be surrounded by certain people there to help that work properly. You have to have advocates in the community, right, to help promote your business. Talk to us a little bit. I mean, what are some of the challenges you encounter in terms of, I guess, scaling from a team of me to a team of we?
Yes. Okay. So, Juwan, when they say that your network is your net worth, they never lie, right? And what I realized was that I was an employee for so long that I was kind of confined in this box, and I didn't have a network outside of my school and my school district. And I'm kind of like a private person where I'm very, friendly and social at work, but after work is over, that's it. I don't need to talk. We don't have to meet up, any of that. And so what I noticed is that I was going to have to shift myself and my own comfort zone with being shy and afraid to speak up and say, hey, I actually have a resource, or I have a business. Being able to start sending out emails, cold calling on the phone. Hey, my name is Candice Williams and I'm blah, blah, blah. And whether they hang up or, they're polite and let me do my little pitch and whatnot, I just realized that I really had to expand my network, and it was more difficult than what I had imagined. And honestly, I feel like since the pandemic, like networking has been much easier for me because, I'm busy mom and all of that. So I don't have time to go to this, networking event or this social event or this and that. But here on my laptop, I could talk to anyone from New York, New Jersey, Texas, California, and it has been very, very helpful. And I also was able to leverage not just Instagram, because kind of sticking to that one social media platform, I noticed that perhaps my audience might not be here either. I have to think about the parents, but also the superintendents and the principals that might want to utilize my resources. And where are they? They're not on Instagram doing the Busset challenge. They're on LinkedIn, So just kind of understanding that I was going to really have to work hard with finding my prospects and my potential clients, my network. And that was one of my biggest challenges.
With talking about challenges, 2020 was a challenge for everyone in some capacity, but you are already an online business. You are already geared to cater to the shift that the world is shifting to, right? Very predominantly online. And in some ways in a lot of ways, you're the platform that you've created is online learning. So tell us about what happened with you in 2020. Did you have to make other pivots and adjustments, stay the course, and things built and grew? I'm very curious, as someone who was already ready for online learning, ready for basically a pandemic of people being at home and their kids being at home and needing to find really quality ways for them to stay educated. I'm curious to hear how, did you experience those challenges as well, or was it a little more smooth sailing for you?
Right. And so, Rachel, that was the interesting part, was that I started with this whole online learning. Parents need support at home. They need to be taught different ways that they can help their reader. They need resources outside of the school. They need something that's affordable. And I already had this whole entire vision, right, of educating parents and supporting parents. And then boom, the pandemic hit. And I was like, are you kidding me? I've been here this whole entire time. And now everybody's virtual learning. Let's do this, let's do that. And I was kind of salty, honestly, because I just wish that people saw the value in what I was trying to do. Prior to now, it's like a Hail Mary and you guys need support, SOS. But for me, I was I started as an online, but I saw how difficult it was to really earn a substantial income just online, trying to sell education, especially early literacy. And then I was gaining momentum by actually doing reading intervention services. I hired a team of certified teachers, and we would go into the Southfield Public Library every Saturday, and we would do these in-person reading intervention services, which was making nice money. Then a pandemic hit. Obviously, we couldn't go into the library anymore. And some of my teachers would say, well, Candice, we can still do this whole reading intervention. We can do it virtually. I was like, I'm not feeling that. I don't like that because, parents are already overwhelmed with putting their children on Zoom for, school. And now we're talking about, hey, now logging back on Saturday to do the virtual reading intervention services. But I wanted to find a way that I could still provide these services because obviously it's a need. We have more than 50% of children in the state of Michigan are reading below grade level. We have in Detroit, only 9% of third graders were able to pass the M-Step in reading in 2018. Then it went up to 11%. So obviously there's support that's needed. And so with that, I just say, okay, how can I provide the services, given the fact it cannot be in person? I don't want to bore them once again with coming back on Zoom and trying to impose on their schedule, because it's kind of imposing on parents' schedule, expecting children to log in and so forth. And then one of the main things that I leverage and what makes Urby Education stand out is that we do research-based strategies that are hands-on, fun, and engaging. So I'm used to children being able to manipulate magnetic letters or word tiles, and we're building sentences using these magnetic tiles, or maybe we're using Orton Gillingham practices on how to spell. And I was able to create the Online Reading Academy, which is my videos. I do pre-recorded videos, and it's all different components of literacy where we're doing fun activities on spelling and reading and writing. Even Justin is teaching some of my lessons as well, so they get to see a kid actually teach them too. And then I also created lit kits. So that whole hands-on thing that I talked about, I noticed that a lot of parents didn't have access to books at home or ways to create these fun centers that I keep talking about. So I packaged up a kit where to have books in there. We have alphabetic letters where they can practice spelling using these fun stickers, cool emoji erasers, ways that they can use their dry erase markers to blend and write sounds. And this is how I was able to compile the same thing that I was offering in person, now all online.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm just getting excited listening to it. I am part of that audience that you're talking about, right? The sitting in the background, trying to get my work done, watching the kids in front of their screens, and just the challenge of trying to be productive, right? And do something called earn income and keep a roof over your head. But also now with this new type of way of learning that's being introduced to our households, also have to be attentive to what's going on with the kids too. And of course, it's the worst when they have no interest in what's going on the screen. Right. Mm-hmm. So now, not only am I listening to see, are they getting the information they need? Now I'm like literally standing behind them, like right. Screen. I mean, I just love what you're doing. Those statistics, though, that you just shared. Mm-hmm. Now, I knew things were bad, but that's catastrophic.
Yes. Yes. And Jawan, I like to remind people that, yes, we are in a pandemic. But don't forget about the reading epidemic that we're in, okay? Mm-hmm. Where in Michigan, we're ranking at number 43 in the country in education. And the top performing states are those New England states, like New Hampshire, Vermont. They're at the top of the chain when it comes to education. And now Michigan, we're falling all the way down here. And it's the goal for us to be in the top 10 in 10 years, but we're already projected to fall even lower on the scale. So what is the issue? What is the problem? Well, first they said it's the teachers. They need more training. They need more coaches. They need more reading specialists to come into the schools to support them. Then they said, oh no, it must be the kids. So it's the kids. So let's put more tutoring programs in there. Let's give them more support, more services. But they're addressing all of these components except for home, right? So what are we doing for the parents? Are we encouraging them by welcoming them into the school, showing them the different strategies and resources that they can use, not talking over their heads like I was doing back in 2018, right? But just saying, hey, this is how you can support your reader or your K-2 student. And then also what I noticed too is that parents wanted to learn, like they really want to help their child. They just want to feel comfortable. I don't want to feel judged. I just want someone to say, hey, here you are, here you go, and I can help you out. So my whole entire idea was to create a system that will support all of those areas. I can do professional developments and trainings and coach teachers and reading, because just because you're a teacher, it doesn't mean that you know how to teach a child how to read, right? And that's something that I can dive into at a later point. But then it's also the student. Well, what support is the student receiving? Well, for me, they can enroll into my online reading academy, where they have these fun, interactive, engaging lessons taught by a real person, a real expert with a proven track record, right? Then they also can order the lit kits, where now they have what they need at home. And then, of course, the parent component is where I host parent workshops, where I show them ways that they can take a stack of index cards and change that into a vow center or a vow activities. So it's just being a little bit more intentional on how we're going to really attack this issue and support all stakeholders in the process.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so powerful what you just mentioned, right? Especially, like, I remember growing up, and I remember when I reached a certain level in school, my parents weren't always able to help me because their education level had only peaked at a certain place, right? And I can imagine what having access to these type of tools and someone who's actually focused in on them and their personal development, being comfortable with the process, acclimating them, how much more fruitful the experience would have been for all parties. And that's so huge, right? The other thing that I'm listening to is the fact that you've said data a number of different times. Like, you're utilizing actual data and information as opposed to decisions being driven by money or driven by simply relationships or driven by the opinions or what's sexy right now. And you already touched on that earlier, so I'm not going to get you involved in any of the politics involved in the education system here in Detroit Metro. But I thought that was powerful. But I'm also listening to your language, right? And we talked a little bit offline before we started here. I know personal development and self-education and learning is a big piece of what you do, because you're climbing. I don't envy you. I mean, I really don't. I think starting up a restaurant is one of the most difficult businesses ever in life. And I believe starting up a business in the education field is one of the most difficult businesses ever, because you really, I don't know how you do it and not take it home, right? You're engaging parents, you're engaging children. You're probably seeing some things that most of us can only imagine. I mean, you know the statistics, but you're experiencing it on the front line, right? What are you doing to pour into yourself? What are you doing to continue to reinvigorate yourself? How do you edify yourself so you can get up the following day and attack the challenge with just as much vigor and enthusiasm and verve as you're displaying now? What's your secret sauce?
You're talking about when I'm not crying after I post something that was really important to me and nobody likes it, or the part where I've been working on getting this contract and then they finally say no. What do I do then? I'm kidding. But I think for me, what really just kind of renews my spirit is just thinking about the impact that I'm making. Even when I feel like something isn't working, it's always something that God sends me. It could be an email, it could be a text message, it could be a DM from one of my students, one of my most difficult students, the kid I was going to quit one day. I was teaching fourth grade. This was like maybe back in 2011. And I mean, this kid just gave me the hardest time. I don't know how he found me on social media, but he happened to send me a DM and he said, he sent a picture of a goat. And he said, I just want to let you know that you're the GOAT. Like, you're my favorite teacher and you probably don't remember me. And I said, oh no, I remember you. I had to look on his page. And I said, I remember you. But he said, I want to let you know that you're the greatest of all time. I sat back and I really been thinking about you. You've been on my mind. You were such a great teacher. And I just wasn't, just responsive to you because I was going through a lot of things. But that right there to me was just a moment of saying, you know what? Everything that you're doing is worth it. And outside of just having that feedback from the community, parents, educators, and children, I think too, I find time to spend time with my friends and my family. Outside of that, personally for me, I would say my other thing I like to do is I like to eat. I like to eat good. I think that's how I like, award myself. I mean, reward myself is I would buy myself a really good meal, shrimp, salmon, crab legs, and I would just eat good because that for me is like luxury, being able to eat good like that. So
I want to ask too, with so many changes that have happened that this past year that I think have propelled a lot of people who are in roles or in jobs that or have careers that have a very traditional trajectory, right? If you go to school, you want to become a teacher, you go work in schools. Like that's just kind of how our system has always worked, right? And here you're someone who has broken that mold, right? Of showing that there's an alternative to how we educate everyone, right? In our society. So for those people who are watching or listening that that feel that, well, there's not an entrepreneurial space, right, in what I do, right? It's a very traditional 9 to 5, I go work for someone type of role. What would you tell people who are but have that spirit in them that know that they could do more, be more, and want to create more? What were some things that you had to tell yourself, you had to remind yourself, or what you did as well to feel confident in that transition?
right, yeah. And it's funny that you say that, Rachel, because my principal told me one day the same story I talked about when I wanted to quit. And I came into his office and I said, you know what, this isn't for me. All right. I'm trying to be on the beach somewhere in St. Thomas. And these checks is not helping me get there. Okay. Then on top of that, you got these kids sometimes who are just unruly. And I didn't know it was going to be like this. I'm going to go into a whole nother field. I'm going to go into media. I said I wanted to become a DJ. I think I wanted to be some kind of talk show host, a media personality. And he said, Candice, if you're good at what you do, the money will come. And that really stuck with me till this day, because I realized, he said, you're really good at what you do. I mean, you have these high evaluations. I'm looking at your students' data, and you took that class and transformed them into this. You're good at what you do. But I said, I'm dissatisfied with the way that everything is being done. And for me, I believe that what I had was something special. And what it took for me was just to understand that I know I'm good at what I do. I just need to make a bigger impact, and I need to figure out how can I take my skills and my talents and build something that I'm happy to see every day in the morning. I'm not kind of disgruntled at times. And for me, it was just believing in myself and my determination, and my overall dream of seeing me in a happier space is what pushed me and like moved me to go forward. So for anybody out there that's listening, I would just say, just believe in your talent, believe in your vision, because the vision was given to you. No one sees it because it's not for everybody, it's for you. And so when I think about that, even when I talked about how I shared my vision with those teachers at that time, and they looked at me like I was crazy, I'm like, you know what, it's fine. You don't have to believe this because it wasn't for you anyway. This is for me. And so you have to just believe in that vision and understand that that was meant for you.
I like it. What's a common misunderstanding or something that you feel people don't get about the nature of the work that you do, right? And also, what do you think is a common misunderstanding or error in judgment that aspiring entrepreneurs make in your field?
Okay, so one of the biggest misconceptions about education in general is that the schools are supposed to fix it. The schools are supposed to fix all the problems, right? And I understand that schools have become a safe haven for students who may need social work, who may need a school psychologist, students who may need extra support in speech therapy, reading specialists. I mean, you have so many different roles. It's not like it used to be where you have a principal and teachers and that was it. Now you have all these multiple layers because what they're realizing is that we have to teach to the whole child, meaning that it's not just about academics, but it's about this child's social, emotional well-being. If they need extra services, we have to put that in place in the school. So if I have a child who may have special needs, they shouldn't have to go outside of the school to get their needs met. It should be all here. But the misconception, even in that, is that all schools are funded the same and there's equity across the board, and there's not equity across the board. Obviously, in the higher tax bracket areas, there's more resources in place, and on the lower scale, there's less resources in place. And obviously, those are the schools and areas that need more resources, where it's great that you have a reading specialist, but you don't need one for those 300 kids who are struggling in reading. You need about 5, right? And that's going to be 5 times the salary. So to me, that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that the schools are made and they have been created to fix all the problems. As an entrepreneur in education, I think that the biggest misconception is that because I'm an expert, everyone's going to hire me. You know, because there's a lot of experts out there. There's a lot of reading specialists, reading consultants or whatnot, but they're not Candice. They're not you. So you have to figure out, what is it about me that distinguishes me from everybody else? Why would someone want me opposed to these other 20, 30 people that's calling them and beating down their doors? So for entrepreneurs in there, out there who are, you know, specifically in education, I would just say that, what is it about you that makes you stand out? And you have to find that thing and not just think because I'm an expert and I have a degree in this, or, you know, I've been studying this, that everyone is going to want to hire me or use my services or your services.
You said the word door and it triggered another question. I've been thinking about it a little bit while you've been speaking. You talked about how doors were slammed shut.
And locked.
Yeah, locked. Not even shut.
Not even slammed, just
They're
locked.
not available.
Okay.
Now, because you and I do chat from time to time, I know some of those doors are starting to open. It's such a wonderful feeling too. When those locked doors start to open, it's a word I can use, but I'm not going to do it here on social media. It's very gratifying when those locked doors start opening. How did you get those doors to open?
So, so first, let me start where they were being closed, right? So I'm in education. I'm an expert. I built this business. I have a proven track record. I have all this great stuff. I have a portfolio. I can open up and show you my data. And the first type of organization I was headed to were the schools, right? Hey guys, I'm a reading specialist. I have this great business. Hire me. You want me? And they're like, no, slam shut, lock it, you know, throw away the key. And so I sat in my feelings. COVID hit, and I had built up this whole portfolio of all of these Head Start programs, preschool programs, and school districts. And then something told me, you got to shift. You know, where else are all these parents? They're not only in the schools, but they're also a part of nonprofit organizations. So maybe you should start looking into that. Those doors that were closed, some of those doors that were closed are for some of those people who you mention your business, turn back around and kind of, you know, go back and say, hey, I'm still here. So it was a couple of things. It was me realizing, okay, this door is closed, it's locked, it's over, let it go, move on. Then also realizing those doors that were, you know, kind of still ajar, you know, I kind of could slide my foot in there and open that door back up, but just having the confidence just to kind of resurface and say, hey, I'm still out here. I know it's a pandemic and I offer these services. So not being afraid to circle back to those who, you know, you may still have a little something with them there, realizing that whatever doors are closed, let it go. But then also kind of opening up my mindset to understanding that I don't have to bark up this one tree. It's just the wrong tree, you know? And so that was the thing I had to do. So I shifted to nonprofit organizations, and now I was able to work with Focus Hope, Brilliant Detroit. And now I'm also, I've done a partnership with the United Way of Southeastern Michigan. And you would think that I would be able to have first dibs in the schools, but it didn't happen that way. And I'm okay with that.
I love it. I love it. triumphs, things that, you kind of touched about this already, but if you care to elaborate, your value prop, what's ultimately allowed you to be triumphant? Because you have a lot of competition. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Especially since the pandemic, everyone wants to all of a sudden, there's a couple industry everybody wants to jump into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of copycat and a lot of different things going on. What ultimately separates you from your competition?
Good question. So one, honestly, when I look at all of the competition out there, one thing I realize is that how many people, well, first of all, I'm a minority, right? So I'm a Black woman born in the city of Detroit, and I just have a certain edge about myself that a lot of parents can relate to, a lot of educators can relate to as well. So I'm not your cookie cutter, I have on my gown and I'm walking and showing you all of my reading activities that I have here, but it's more so of a down-to-earth, very welcoming personality, and quite charming, I must add. But I think too is that I just have this experience where I'm saying, hey, I studied this, I studied all these different curriculums, but I've been in the schools. Okay. I'm not so like detached from the experience and understanding what it is that students need to become successful, but I'm actually in this. So I'm seeing what works. I study the different curriculums. I'm using different strategies. And on top of that, I've also coached and supported teachers too. So I think what separates me is simply the fact that I'm still in the schools. So I have that experience. I know what it's like to be a teacher. I know the teacher's pains. I know the parents' pains. My ear is still to the streets, quote unquote, right? So on top of that, then you have the fact that I have a proven track record. I'm an award-winning reading specialist. I also have my son, Justin, who's proof that my strategies work. He's only 5 years old, reading and spelling at a second grade level. So when I'm telling parents, hey, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, this is proof. Then another piece to me is the fact that I'm all about engaging the readers, engaging children, because one of the parents' biggest complaints is that they're bored. They don't want to just sit there and just read a book. So I was able to tap into the mind of a child from working with them daily during reading intervention. Okay, so what is it that they like to do? How can I find ways to reach these different learners, and coming up with these different approaches to teach the same thing that may be taught in the classroom or at home, but now they're more engaged. Then I feel like also I was able to have a relationship with the parents. Relationships are so important. And parents will open up to me and tell me, hey, this is what I noticed with my child. And after you work with them, this is what I noticed too. How can I replicate that at home? So I feel like that's what separates me. And given the fact, as I said before, is I have a program that supports all stakeholders, the child, the parent, and also the schools.
I love it. I love it.
So, yeah, well, this kind of ties into just how many, when we hopped on the Zoom before we went live, I was saying how right away what struck me was your background, right? And like, even not even reading it, just visually, it is very inspiring already to look at. And you were talking about that helps give you motivation, inspiration. But with so many different people and age groups and industries and whatever that you work with, and just in just this one thing of reading, right? What else can you tell us that I know you have touched on it already as well, but what inspired you to even create that background, and what are the things that help bring you energy to keep moving this business that is growing so well, keep growing it, moving it forward?
Yeah, Rachel. So you know what, like looking at this is years of work, blood, sweat, and tears. The moments where I would come home and I would cry for about 15 minutes because of all of the stress and all the pressure and anxiety that I felt. And I don't think people really think about this as much. Maybe they're starting to realize it now because of COVID. But the schools, like this is where children will come and dump a lot of their emotional, mental, academic issues, strengths, weaknesses, all into one place. And you have this one educator who they're dumping it all into. And it's tough to balance that, emotionally, mentally, while you're still trying to support everybody else around you. Then you have your personal life. And to see those awards is also saying, hey, you done something right, though. It might have been tough, it might have been hard, but you done something right, and you made an impact. And don't forget about your beginning, because when I look at some of those awards and I see, wow, 2012, man, like how old was I? What was going on in my life at that time? And then to still see 2019, 2020, it just makes me realize that I've overcome a lot, but I've also changed a lot of lives along the way, and that the work is not done. It's not done yet, because there's still some things that are missing, right? And so for me, it just gives me an inspiration, just seeing the journey, knowing the impact, but also knowing that I'm just now getting started, because Urby Education is, almost three years in. But man, that's so small on a scale when you hear people say, I've been in business for 20 years.
Mhm.
Like these are the startup years. And I just want to kind of keep be mindful of being in the moment and being present. But also, if I do look back, I see a lot of success, and that inspires me to not be afraid of the obstacles that may be in front of me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, man, there's so many questions I want to ask, but we're running short. But you said something that caught my attention, and we're going a little bit off base, but I think it's such an important question, right? When you look at the mountain you're climbing, when you look at the challenges that are going to be before us, one of my biggest fears is I never want to point the finger, because in some respects, the whole educational system, in my mind, needs to be torn down and built right back up again. Like, there's so much that needs to be addressed, right? But I remember, I'm trying to remember her name. I think it was Tanya, former president or CEO of the Skillman Foundation. She's moved on. Miss Allen, I think Miss Tanya Allen. And I remember going to a talk that she attended about the education system here in Detroit Metro. And she says, you all are fighting over something that's broken. You're fighting over something that's broken, right? And that stuck with me since I heard her share that perspective maybe 3-4 years ago. And I'm thinking about the fact that it already had its challenges, that, despite the phenomenal work, the educators like yourself that you're doing, a lot of it isn't working, right? In terms of not your work not working, but the outcomes. We're not getting the outcomes and the results that we want for our children. And then I think about the pandemic in a way that I know is further even compromised, right? The education of our children. And I'm concerned that we may lose another generation. We may lose another, you see these kids out here in the street marching and protesting, and it wasn't lost on me that a lot of them were kids. Like, they weren't adults. A lot of those people in the streets were 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds. Young kids. And they're going through it right now. And what are we doing to shore up the system? What are we doing, or what are we going to do to give them a fighting chance to catch up with the rest of the world that we're competing against, when you have kids their same age who know 3 and 4 different languages and already doing advanced math stuff we're doing in college, they're already doing in high school? I think about these things critically. Mm-hmm. And I know it may be an unfair question, but because of your background, you're a real gem. You're a real jewel, Candice. Like, the deeper I've dove into your accomplishments and the things that you've done, and then listening to Rochelle at the top of the show start really laying out, these are the things you've accomplished. Man, you're one of the best kept secrets we have in Detroit Metro. And I believe that. I'm adamant about that, really.
Yeah.
So based on the breadth of experience and skill and know-how that you have, what are some solutions you think could be effective in terms of addressing this gap that we have between those who are literate and those who aren't? And more important, not just being literate, but being competitive. What do you think needs to happen?
Yes. So a few things. One, just like you said, that there have to be some kind of education reform, right? Is that we have to really think about how we are funding the schools, look at the needs of the schools and create equity. And equity is not equal. It's not everybody getting the same thing, right? But it's about people getting what they need to be successful. And as I said before, if you have a school and there's 500 students and you have 300 of those students are on a reading intervention plan, they're receiving an IRIP, as they call it, then obviously there have to be more manpower in place to support those students. Okay, so we can't just pay for a tutoring program to come in because the instruction have to be targeted. So therefore, we need more reading interventionists, more reading specialists in place. We need to change the way that we are funding the schools. Secondly, I believe that even before a teacher becomes a teacher, that there's this whole little process that they go through in the College of Education, and they become an intern within their last year. But that's not enough for them to really experience education, to experience what it's like to be a teacher. And I feel that even the coursework doesn't teach them how to navigate through a student who may be going through some kind of emotional crisis. They're not trauma informed. So all of these things affects the way that we are educating our children. And so I would like for the College of Education to create programs. And in fact, I would love to mentor teachers before they start. You don't have to wait until the College of Education say, okay, here's your internship, but you can begin learning from someone like me, someone who's been there, who knows the ins and outs of literacy and education. Then also we need to focus more so on the parents. And I think that the issue is that there's not enough parent programs in place. They already say the statistics shows that when a parent is engaged, automatically the child's academics go up, right? So if I'm not engaged as a parent, but the schools are engaged, then there's already, the skills are already unbalanced. So I don't know how that have to be put in place, but we have to have more parent programs, more parent support, more funding in the schools. And we also have to figure out how can we get our children more interested in reading. And the way that we can do that is by getting the parents to buy in on it, but also getting libraries back into the school, where there's a lot of schools don't even have librarians anymore. They can't afford it. So there's a lot of schools out there, I'm not going to name who they are, beautiful libraries, but the kids can't even come in to check out books. And they walk past that beautiful library every day, staring in there, but they can't even have access to these books, all because of a $30,000, $40,000 salary. That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
So we really have to think about that, and also think about the kind of curriculums that we are choosing to put into the schools. Are they actually effective? Are our children learning from these curriculums? So to me, those are a few things out of many that need to be changed.
You know, I think about a business principle, right? You'll hear business owners say sometimes, I don't have time to do A, B, C, and D, or I don't have the resources to do everything A, B, C, and D. And 9 times out of 10, when I hear that, I immediately think to myself, that's why you don't have time not to, right? The things you don't have time to do it. The thing that you supposedly cannot afford to do it. You find a way, right? Mm-hmm. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, there's certain things we just can't afford not to do. Right? We can't afford to have, 90% of the population underperforming. I mean, we can't, that's something we just can't afford. We don't have a choice. We have to address that, mm-hmm. right? Have to. I'm thinking even from the standpoint as a small business owner, right? When you're a small business owner, especially when you're starting out, you can't afford the person that you want as an employee, as a partner, because you don't have the $60,000 to $80,000 to pay someone that can justify that compensation with their experience and skill. So you have to find somebody who maybe does not have that experience yet, does not necessarily have that know-how or that skill set. And from what I'm hearing, part of the reason why even for the small business owners are listening, the reason why this is important to us is because these kids that we're talking about, that education gap, that reading gap, that's our pool of potential individuals, mm-hmm. right? That's where we have to pull from. We have to have a vested interest in this, and we can't ignore it anymore. I'm sorry, I just got on my soapbox.
No, Juwan, you are absolutely right. And just kind of speaking on that a little bit more, is that the system is way too top heavy, where
Yeah.
we have all of these if you look at the average school district, they have a literacy director, executive literacy director, assistant this, curriculum that, and you're like, whoa, you have about 50 people who are supposed to ensure that there's equity, ensure that children are receiving what they need, all of this money and these salaries, and we're still failing. Like, what's really going on? Some schools even have a teacher in every classroom, certified teacher, plus a paraprofessional, which is like a teacher's aide in every classroom, and we're still failing. What is going on? But meanwhile, we're bringing in the numbers where we want more students, because for every child that comes into the school, that's $7,000. So we're bringing them in, but we're not meeting the needs, because what happened is that, unfortunately, it's become a business. It's more so of a business model, not really geared towards the people. And once we find a way to dismantle all of that, then I think that we'll be able to focus more on the people. But you're right, it's very scary. And sometimes I feel like I'm the only one that's looking at this and caring about this. Like, did anybody see this? Anybody, like, nobody else is like, what, 9% of third graders? Are you kidding me? No one else cares about this. And I think it's time also to call out a lot of these corporations and businesses that are prospering in the city of Detroit, who are opening up on every corner, but they're not doing anything in the community. And I think we really need to start addressing that as well.
I know we're going a little bit over, but I think this topic is so important. I can't let it go, right? I just can't. Because I hear this a lot, that the schools are being run like businesses. And when I think about running a business, the objective is to create good outcomes, right? In order for my business to flourish, in order for your business to flourish, in order for Rochelle's business to flourish, or anyone who's listening, in order for your business to flourish, you have to have good outcomes, right? The good outcomes drive your business. So if I don't have happy clients, if I don't have receipts, or like you said earlier, social media is your social proof, I can't show proof that I'm having an impact, I'm out of business, right? And sometimes I wonder, are the schools really being run like a business? Are they really being run like something else, right? And I'm not going to go too far with this, because I have friends that are teachers, and I don't want to hit any phone calls and emails after this. But I sometimes wonder if the schools are even being ran like a business, because if they were, then they'd want the good outcomes. I mean, if I'm a parent that's educated properly, and I understand the value of education, I'm going to make sure my child is educated. So I'm going to be vested in that. And I'm going to make sure that my child is in attendance. But if I'm a parent that's come through a system where the system didn't serve me, and I feel like I matriculated 12 years or how many years through this system, and I still didn't get the job I wanted, I still don't have the house, the car, I still don't have the lifestyle I wanted, of course, I'm going to pass on the information to my child. Well, education doesn't amount to anything. It's not necessary anyway, right? Go out and do something else instead. And we know where that road leads, right? I just wonder about that thinking, right? Are schools really being ran like a business, or are they being ran like I almost feel like just being ran like a piggy bank? And I think there's a difference.
So when you say being ran like a piggy bank, what's the difference between being ran like a business and being ran like a piggy bank?
So when you have a business, you have a product or a service, right? Okay. And when you think about it, that's the difference between a pyramid versus a legitimate business, right? Technically speaking, academically speaking, and legally speaking, right? You have a pyramid when you have people putting money in something, but they're not getting a product or service. That entity only exists for the purpose of taking their money.
Correct.
Right? And enriching people. So they're not getting anything out of it. When you have a legitimate business, your business actually delivers a product or service. It actually provides some type of outcome. In other words, people are paying their money, but they're getting something back in value, right? As opposed to some type of scheme that just circulates money.
Wow.
See, now I've said something that I know I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get. Yeah.
You won't get me there, buddy. No,
I know.
Okay, so all I will say is this: the data speaks for itself, right? So just to answer that question, the data speaks for itself. So if my goal is to produce a great outcome, which obviously would be producing students who are academically prepared, we're providing these resources and these services in the community, and here's the great outcome of all of that, right?
Yeah.
The data speaks for itself. So just kind of going in on that without going too deep, I would also even add the fact that what if I could say, hey, I do provide a service, here's a product. Now the outcome and the results of it, that doesn't matter, but I did provide the service and the product.
I see it as when you were talking about it's being run like a business, it's being run. I see what you were saying in the sense of it's being run by this very, a capitalist corporation where it's profit over people, right? Where, just like you were just saying now, that the focus is more on how well funded they are or how profitable they can be. And unfortunately, the results of what they do doesn't contribute to their profit, so it's not mattering as much, right? So that's what I agree with what you're saying, that it's the focus and attention has shifted in how, you know, their profits aren't related to people in that capacity. So it skews their thinking of what is important and valuable, of what they need to do to keep going, right, and keep running as a system. So yeah, I think it's complicated.
Right. And then just to, you know, kind of piggyback off of that, then unfortunately you have this competition, and I hate to see it. I had to live through it. And when I came out of college, I had to work through it, but it was the battle between the public schools and the charter schools, right? And so how badly I wanted to see DPS win, they were up against all of these charter schools, right? And so it's just unfortunate that now you have to fight over getting the children into the schools. And obviously if they're in the schools, then that school district is funded. And because you have all these different options and whatnot, then it kind of takes away from the children receiving what they really need, because now the money and the funding is being split in so many different ways. And I just really hope that there's a way that we can kind of resolve the issue. And, you know, hopefully we see something different.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost feel like I feel about the education system the way I feel about the health system, right? And I'm an entrepreneur saying this because I believe in entrepreneurship, right? But there are certain things that can't be run for the sake of profit. Certain things that you have to do for the public good, profitable or not. I feel that way about healthcare, and I feel that way about education. That you can't run an educational system like you would a corporation, right? What you're taking aim at, the imperatives have to be different, right? So anyway, I appreciate the feedback. I love it.
Yeah. I'm so grateful, Rachel and Juwan, for you guys having this platform, like I said, to be able to share this kind of information, because I don't have a lot of opportunities where I get to talk about the entrepreneurship side as well as education, you know. So I'm excited, and I really hope that the audience were able to get a few gems, not just about education and the statistics and the data, but also as an aspiring entrepreneur or as an entrepreneur too. I hope that they were able to take in some of those gems about making that shift in their social media, their branding, and their strategy to, you know, be able to get more sales. ABC, always be closing.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, let's end it on our positive note. So we always ask our guests, and we talked about this briefly, and we were excited to hear your answer of what would you consider your superpower, and or what would be your spirit animal?
Yeah. You know what, Rachel, I hear about this whole spirit animal thing, but I don't really know what it means. So I'm going to stick to the superpower.
That's fine.
Okay. My superpower, I believe, is, I want to say a few, but I will stick to this one, which is being disciplined, like self-discipline, because if I lack discipline in my life right now, I wouldn't be where I am today. It took discipline to wake up every morning and be at the bus stop to go to Cass Tech at 6:45 a.m. It took discipline for me to push through all of the issues that I was having during my college years, both personal and academic. It took discipline to wake up every morning and still go into the schools, although I was tired. It took discipline to wake up at 5 in the morning just to be able to type up my email to my subscribers. So I would say discipline is my superpower.
Excellent. And you left us with so many amazing gems and nuggets. And I think that that ABC, always be closing, is a great way to sum that up. Candice, what's a way for people to, if they want to learn more about you, they want to learn more about Urby Education, what's the best way to reach? And you talked about social media. What are your social medias? How can people connect with you?
So they can connect with me if you go onto Instagram, Urby Education, as URBY Education. That's my handle. And also UrbyReadingAcademy.com, and that's URBY Academy.com. So UrbyReadingAcademy.com, this is where we have our online reading academy, where parents pay a nominal fee, just $20 a month, where they have access to my unlimited content of reading videos. And if you go onto my Instagram page, Urby Education, I have all types of fun content on there where I'm showing you how you can support your child at home. It's fun content. You get to know me as an entrepreneur CEO. It's a personal thing. So connect with me, DM me, comment, like, and follow, support, whatever it is that you would like to do. I'm here for it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Candice. We have to have you back so we can dive deeper into these things. Obviously, we went over, and that's because we got more to talk about with you. So thank you all again. If any of this resonated with you, again, go back and watch it, grab those nuggets of wisdom, share this with people who could get value out of this as well.